I walked into the house and, I mean, there was nothing that resembled my house anymore. Every internal wall had gone. The stairs had gone. There was like almost a gaping hole in the ceiling.
Welcome to Stories from Sight, the renovation podcast that digs a little deeper. I'm Amy Dornalic, and together with my co-host Jane Middlehurst, we peek behind the curtains of those Insta-worthy interiors to bring you the real processes people went through to make their dream homes a reality. What worked well for them, what went completely wrong, and what did they learn from the experience? After 10 years as architects renovating homes, Jane and I set up HomeNotes to teach people how to take on their own renovation journeys. We've met so many inspiring people on the way, and now we want to share their incredible stories. This week we talked to Kirsty, whose site work started just as lockdown number 3 came into force. We talked to her about managing a project while homeschooling and working, the fundamentals of communication and personal relations on site, and what happens when you part ways with your builder. So today we'd love to talk about your renovation, and I wondered if you could start with the vision you had for the project.
The vision, it sort of grew. So we bought a really weird house that had like loads of extensions and had corridors and dark rooms and a front-facing first floor conservatory. Yeah. So I suppose the vision was just get rid of the conservatory and try and create a bit more continuity in the house. But we didn't really know what we could afford, what was possible or anything. So we knew the conservatory needed to go and be rebuilt properly. And we had the odd plan of like moving a wall. But I suppose it's more conversations with some of our lovely architect friends. And it sort of made it spiral after that because it was like, oh, well, you could move the stairs. If we could move the stairs, we could do this. And then before you know it, we'd like moved every single internal wall and done everything. But all we really wanted to do was create a house that felt more like one house that was built rather than a house with a series of extensions and dark corners and corridors and stuff. We just wanted a nice family house.
How many rooms did the existing house have? Like, did you add any bedrooms?
We got rid of rooms, really, I suppose. There was lots of little rooms. Like, I think it pitched itself as a 6-bedroom house, but one of those rooms had no external windows. It's like,
that's actually a cupboard.
Exactly. It was ludicrous. And like, you know, like little box rooms that, you know, if you've not got a nursery, you're never going to use for anything. So we got rid of all those little rooms, and the rooms that had no windows became like bathrooms and things that made a bit more sense. So yeah, we went from what was pitched as a 6-bedroom house but never was to a 5-bedroomed house that's just a lot more open and nice and feels now like a family house rather than a weird little chalet bungalow that's been extended and doesn't work.
So can you tell us how you got to that point? You said you worked with an architect. What did they do for you?
I suppose we started off would have been your guys' HomeNotes course. Go in there and just getting ideas of what was actually feasible, because all I've ever done before is like, oh, we'll redo a kitchen. And you just kind of think, can that wall move? And do that? And it just opens you up to thinking about it. And then we realised that we needed an architect to come in and tell us what was sensible and what wasn't. And then we spent a long time trying to get the design right. COVID happened and a delay of a year made us look at it all again so much more. At that point, we'd lived in the house for 2 years and we really knew what we didn't like about it and what we wanted it to be. So our architect, Pete, who was lovely, also a good friend, he put up with me being like, I just had a thought last night that maybe the kitchen could be there instead. Should we just draw this out? And he was very patient with me, I have to say. Yeah, I was probably an absolute nightmare client. So if you're listening, Pete, sorry. I just wanted the layout to work and he was very patient with us.
And what happened next?
So we finally agreed on everything with the layout, and then the wonderful job of finding builders. Again, the architect was wonderful for that. He had people who he'd used previously locally and other people that he'd heard good things about, because you try and get recommendations from people and no one will recommend their builder.
For what reasons? Why are people cagey about that?
Oh, they're just like, oh, could I have a number of your builder because your house looks amazing? You could, but you probably don't want to use them. It wasn't like kind of, I'm reserving this person. It was more like, God, we had a nightmare. Everyone seemed to have a horrible nightmare of it. I had one person who would recommend their builder, but their builder was like, oh, I'm really sorry, I've just retired. So that was a bit sad. But yeah, he was very good at tendering out the project and then getting all the quotes back and comparing all the random things and then being like, we can't afford anything like they're asking us to pay. What can we cut? And yeah, he was brilliant at going through all that costing process and finally going for the cheap one. That may or may not have been a good decision.
So how many prices did you get back?
I think we had 4 in the end. Pete had a lovely sheet with everything broken down, like the schedule of work almost came from it and where all the costs were for everything. And so we could say like, well, actually, we can't afford to fully decorate everything. We'll do that ourselves and chopping bits and bobs out until we got to a price that we could work with. And then, yeah, once it was decided, then we went for it. And it was ridiculously fast then. As soon as we'd said, okay, that price works, when's good, they were like, well, we can start in about a month or so. So we had to move out because there's only one room in the house that didn't have a wall knocked down in it. So it was a mad rush to find somewhere else to live and find somewhere to store all of our stuff because we moved into a little 2-bedroomed flat down the road. It was the beginning of January 2021. And you were like watching it going, just don't close the schools. Just don't close the schools. You can close them in a week's time. And they closed the schools. So yeah, the mad rush to try and get everything sorted whilst homeschooling was a little bit crazy, but we did it and it was all fine.
When you started on site, did you have your architect to help you manage that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a wonderful plan for how it was all going to work on site. And we had weekly Friday meetings with the main contractor to see the progress, all that kind of jazz. We had a lovely plan that was all going to work really smoothly. And then almost immediately it just went out the window. Like they started a week early and the demolition stage was just ridiculously fast. Like on that first Friday, I walked into the house and I mean, there was nothing that resembled my house anymore. Every internal wall had gone, the stairs had gone. There was like almost a gaping hole in the ceiling. It was like, it was so fast how far they did it. And so the next thing you know, like we're a few days into it and all the steels have been ordered. And so it's like, could we maybe have the payment a bit early? So we broke the payment schedule within 3 days. The house that we rented was literally 5 minutes walk down the road. It was nothing at all to be like, can you just pop over and look at this? So the Friday morning sensible things quickly turned into almost I was popping up and down a lot of the time. And yeah, whether that was beneficial in some ways, but in other ways it was like, am I just being in the way? Do you need to ask me this now? Is this important? So yeah, so we still kept up with the sort of Friday meetings for a while, and then the contractor stopped coming, and of course lockdown hit. We were all homeschooling, the architect was homeschooling as well, and so it just sort of became a bit more less organised and sporadic. But yeah, I had help whenever I needed it. Pete was always there on the phone and answering emails and come and help with all the big things. He was brilliant.
But you were managing the kind of day-to-day stuff and the day-to-day decisions?
Reluctantly, yes.
So just describe the setup a little bit. So you're, in essence, you were project managing with the contractor with support from the architect, but at more of a distance.
Yeah, definitely. So if there was ever any like design structurally questions, anything like that, he was always there. But things in terms of, I don't know, organising the window fitters to come and things like that was all sort of me. So how do I put this? The contractor sometimes wouldn't really be there and very helpful, and there was never really one person on site sort of taking control of everything. To start off with, I felt like there was, but then when things started to slip or they got a new job, people would be moved around, and so there wasn't really a kind of project manager or a main contractor on site at any point in time. So sometimes there was a bit of repeating and the drawings would go with someone else, and so it was a bit chaotic, which is when I think I started like just popping in every day on the way back from the school run in the morning. And sometimes it'd be yep, we're okay. Sometimes I'd be there for like an hour and a half and thinking, what am I doing? I've got a job to do.
And in those long meetings, were you having to tell people what to do if there wasn't really a main person that seemed to be in control on site?
Not so much in terms of telling people what to do. No, it would be more like they'd be asking me questions and like, well, when's your bathroom stuff coming? What are we going to do here? Things like, where is your sink going to go? Do your pipes want here? Like that sort of stuff was a bit lost in translation. So you'd have the conversation with the contractors and then the plumbers. So it would have been really good if there was one point of contact here who could sort of manage it from that side. And so there was a bit of ad hociness that was not ideal, but also positive in a sense, because it meant that because I was always on the other end of the phone and not far away, or they knew they'd see me again soon, I could have like we've run into this problem. Kirsty, what would you like us to do with this? So we dealt with a lot of things really quickly rather than if we had been waiting for the Friday meetings or so. So in a sense, it was really good. But other times you were just like, really? Do you need that tomorrow? Do I need to go to a tiling shop 3 miles away to get that for tomorrow? Can it not wait till it can be delivered? And of course it could. The amount of things that had to be done at a drop of a hat and then would sit there in a corner of a room for 2 months' time not being used, and you think, yeah.
I guess if things are disorganised, they want everything to be sorted, but actually then they get pulled somewhere else.
Definitely that was happening. Yeah, I know that there was the contractor was rather chaotic in where he pulled people, and I saw it from my way as well when I'd been like, no, you need to get the scaffolding down because the windows are coming tomorrow. Like, and I'd see that he'd pull everyone onto site, but that would be at some other job's detriment, wouldn't it? So there was definitely a lot of juggling going on and things. Like the program was always quite, in these weeks we'll have this done. It was never very like specific. Got to the stage halfway through where you realise there isn't actually a plan. They're just going to do what they can do with people when they've got it here. And I mean, it worked. We moved into a house and it's almost finished and it was almost on time and almost on budget. So
talk to us about timings then. How long did you think it was going to be at the beginning and what happened?
It was a 30-week program. I didn't think it would do that. So I gave myself an extra month in the house regardless. They wanted us to be back in beginning of August. I gave myself the beginning of September. And we ended up coming back in at the beginning of October. And it wasn't finished, but it was like, totally livable. Not all the rooms were painted, but it was my kitchens, my bathrooms, my bedrooms, my main living area. It was done. So, yeah, we were a little bit late in terms of timings. And it's still not quite finished. But
considering the description you've given of how everything was working on site, I'm surprised it wasn't actually more delayed than what you're saying.
I always kind of seesaw around with this house and I'm like, well, actually, all we did was a bit of an internal refurb. We didn't really do all that much. It was quite a small project to be like, oh my God, it was massive. We did everything. And so depending on like my mood of the day, it's either like, it was total chaos and was absolutely terrible, or do you know what? We've got an amazing house and it was a little bit late and it was a little bit over budget and I may have fallen out with the builder, but who cares? It worked. So it's definitely down to perception in this house, I think.
Did you notice that when you had moved in, did things really slow down in terms of getting the builders back to finish the last bits? Like, was that the main problem really?
Well, it slowed down before. Definitely slowed down before. And we were at the stage where the builder was asking for like our completion bonus and all these things. And I'm like, you're not finished. I'm not paying you any more money until you've actually got to the stage where these 3 things that I need doing are done. And so I think it slowed down partly because he was like, I can't send people to work there because Kirsty's not paying me. But also he had other projects which were probably at that super fast demolition stage where he was getting it all up front. But yeah, once we moved in, I had the decorator in, he was working for me then rather than the contractor. And no one else really turned up for the first few days afterwards. Then I got COVID and had to send everyone away. That didn't help. Then it was really hard to get people back in. And when they'd come back, you'd be like, brilliant, we're getting someone in. And it would be a day and then they'd be off site again.
That's so frustrating. Do you think it just came from his personality of maybe being a bit disorganized and that was like a natural extension of his personality? Or do you think he was trying to grow his business maybe from doing just one at a time to multiple ones at a time, and he just wasn't quite at that point where it was working?
Do you know, I've been round the houses with what I think was going on so many times. And to start off with, I was definitely like, do you know, his heart is totally in the right place. He's a bit disorganized. Maybe he's taken on too much. This is all going to be fine. Let's just keep going and all will be wonderful. And the additional bills come in for things and you kind of go, okay, maybe you've got some financial troubles, and you kind of start thinking, is this all coming from there? Are you feeling really under pressure and stressed? I very much started on the, I'm feeling sorry for this person personally, to being like, actually, no, he's just a complete chaos merchant and really disorganized.
And were you able to have those conversations with him? Like, were you kind of inquiring what was going on, or did you not really have that relationship?
To a degree, yes. I think as things progressed further on, it became definitely more via email than picking up the phone. And it got to the stage where he just wasn't returning my calls or answering anything. And I mean, I'm like communicating via WhatsApp with joiners and stuff. Like, all the guys on site were amazing. They were so lovely and kept me abreast of everything that was going on. And you could see that maybe things weren't ticking over as lovely as they might have wanted to at the builders generally. But yeah, it went from being, oh, it's just him and he's a bit disorganized, to actually he's in trouble, to actually maybe just doesn't care. Maybe this is just his MO. He gets to the end of a project and then holds the finish to ransom almost. Like, I felt like I wasn't going to get anything done until I'd paid him completion. And I'm not paying completion until it's completed. So it sounds obvious, doesn't it? And then maybe I was just being a bit silly, because in actual fact, we're talking about a very small bit of money in the grand scheme of things, but I don't want to give in to those sort of tactics. So maybe I've just been a bit silly and stubborn.
I don't think so at all. I think the end of site is just notoriously difficult. I mean, everybody's been pushed to their maximum, you know, and there's very little money left in the contract. Yeah. And there's things that haven't been foreseen. And, you know, that last 10% takes 90% of the effort.
Yeah.
I think those finishing details are actually the hardest. Like you said, demolishing a house is fairly quick and the results are amazing, but making sure that all the paint finishes are sanded down and good. Yeah. And, you know, that is a lot of hard work. And I think it just comes at that stage in the project where everybody's fatigued and money's tight. And, you know, it is just a battle getting to the end. Yeah. And I think you were absolutely right not to hand over the money, because then what have you got? You don't have any guarantee, and you didn't have any track record to go off to say that will work out okay. Because if you don't have the communication there as well, you know, you have no idea whether that's going to come to fruition or not.
Well, hopefully it's worked out okay. And the money that was in the retention was enough to cover for a different joiner and a different electrician and the last little bits to finish. So hopefully I won't be more out of pocket than I imagined, but we haven't quite finished yet, so I'm not sure.
And can I ask, coming to the end of it all, what would you say was the most unexpected thing about the whole process?
General level of chaos took me by surprise. I kind of thought, you know, these are professional people who do this for a living, and I just thought there would probably be a bit more of a plan and organisation generally.
Looking back, if you had to do the whole thing again, what would you do differently?
I would pick a different builder. When we went out to tender, there was one person that I really liked. It wasn't like a typical contractor where, you know, you signed up to a contract and there was this amount of money. He worked it more in like a project management way of having, well, if this is your budget, I will get it done to the budget and you will pay the builders directly. And if there's additional costs, we'll deal with those as they rise and everything. But he just seemed really on it. I just really liked him, and I liked the idea of that. And considering that no one would recommend a builder that worked in the normal way. I quite liked that it was something different. But the architect was like, it could be really risky. You've got no protection. And so we didn't go with him. But looking back on the whole process, I kind of always think to myself, I wonder if Michael would have done it differently. And I kind of wished I'd given him a try. I mean, it might have been bloody awful and I might still be in a 2-bedroom flat down the road. But I kind of wish I'd given that a try.
Really interesting concept, isn't it? Because it's like just working open book.
Yeah.
But it's transferring the risk to you rather than the contractor.
Which was exactly the architect's point. And I get it. It's a massive thing to do. Other things I would have done differently. I would have taken personal out of it from the beginning. I would have stuck blindly to the contract and the payment schedule and the schedule of work and everything like that, and documented everything so I could be at every stage. Here is where we are. Here is what you think you've done. Here is how much money I owe you. Just kept it purely professional and moved any sort of personal feelings aside.
And what would you say is the best bit of the process?
Oh, loads of it. Silly things like the first time that you walk in and all of a sudden there's like a massive gaping hole in the middle of your house. You're like, this is how it's going to look. And the windows look amazing. So you've got all those wonderful things of that. The people who you meet, like even the main contractor who obviously I fell out with at the end, like we had some lovely moments, but all the joiners doing Potmaster at 10:30 every morning with them, it was ace. Silly little things. I loved the people who were on site and the stories that they all have for you. The decorator who was a bodybuilder and was going through all the crazy dieting while he was decorating the house at Christmas. They were just lovely. I loved the people who we met on site. And seeing it all unfold was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And having a house at the end where it's just, I didn't know it's what I wanted, but it's exactly what I want.
I just got goosebumps that you say that.
You want to do Potmaster? It's 10:10, it's coming on in 20 minutes, Amy.
That's so nice that you say about all the personal aspect of it and how rich that was, because in a way you were saying, well, that was kind of the downfall. That's the thing. You can't extract your emotions and, the personability of being on a team with all those people. And of course you care about them. And of course everybody's human. And I guess in a way, if you had that other person in between you and them to do that communication with the contractor and say no to the bills when you didn't have to, then you could have been as personable as you wanted to, but it didn't play into the structure of the contract and how that played out. But I just think it's really nice to hear that is a real positive for you at the end of it.
Guys were lovely. And now, when people say to you, would you recommend? I can go, yes, this decorator is amazing. These joiners are lovely. And it's nice to be able to do that.
And Kirsty, has it made you want to do it again?
No.
I think you've asked too soon, Amy. Give her 10 years and then see what she says.
I can't be bothered to hang pictures on the wall. I'm not doing this again. No, I shouldn't say that. No, it has been ace, and I would never say never. But we didn't buy the house to do it up and make money and move on and start again. We just wanted somewhere nice to live, and now we've got somewhere nice to live. There's no desire to do it again. Yeah, and you definitely get to this fatigue stage. I remember just before Christmas, the decorator had done one coat of oil on the stairs, and there was a few other little bits and bobs, and I was just like, mate, it's December, can we just put a tree up and not do anything for another month or so? And you just it's doable now, and I can start finishing off. And as you can see, it's all very plain and white. I'd love to have colour on the wall. I'd love to do so many more little bits of decorating homeliness, but
you need a holiday, I mean.
Give yourself a year.
Oh, thank you so much, Kirsty, for being with us.
My pleasure. And you can come back and see it when it's actually finished.
Can't wait.
If you would like to see pictures of Kirsty's completed project, then head to our website homenotes.co/stories from sites. Thanks for taking the time to listen to this episode. Renovating can be a roller coaster, and if you're at the beginning of your renovation journey, come and find out about our Getting Started course at homenotes.co to make sure you get the best value from your project. Finally, if you've enjoyed this episode, then please do follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, as it will help us reach as many people as possible and all learn from these amazing experiences.